right, everyone. Welcome to It Tastes Different Gaming Appetizers. What are we talking about tonight? Well, Square-Enix might be in some trouble. Maybe. Who knows? You know, they always want to try to make more money, and if they don't make a certain amount of money, they're doing bad. But, they might be. I don't know. Because their games are shifting in a direction that I think a lot of people wish they would kind of shift back, right? A lot of their fan base. But shares for the company have plummeted nearly 30% since Final Fantasy 16 came out on June 22nd, closing on September 13th at the lowest point since May of last year. The PlayStation 5 exclusive sold 3 million copies during launch week. That figure sparked debate on whether or not it was going to be a success, right? And if Square-Enix had met its targets, right? Target sales for that. In July, Square-Enix had told IGN that Final Fantasy 16 were, the sales were extremely strong and insisted the game would sell well to the PlayStation 5, initial base of players. However, sources familiar with the performance of Final Fantasy 16 confirmed sales had slowed considerably since launch, but the game had not yet been considered a disaster. And Square Enix is planning, of course, the PC port of Final Fantasy 16, and they also have 2 paid DLCs in development for the game. But a new report came out from Bloomberg painted a bleak picture for Square Enix, which reported a sharp profit decline in August. Analysts told the publication that Final Fantasy 16 failed to make up for the poor performance of previous Square Enix flops, such as Marvel's Avengers and Forspoken, and the mobile game that soon shut down after launch, and probably all the other mobile games that they continue to release that don't last but barely a year before they end up shutting down because nobody wants to play a mobile game. Square Enix new CEO Takashi Kuru, I hope I said that right, probably not, who insists to reduce the number of smaller games in the works to focus on big budget games that have a greater chance of making an impact on the company's bottom line. That's what he wants to do. They say that the root of the problem, sources that told Bloomberg that the root of the problem is that producers were given full reign over the scope and direction of projects whose goals can shift without warning. So, that could change the quality of the final product in the end. I'd say Final Fantasy 16 was a great game. I enjoyed it. I liked Final Fantasy 16. The problem I have with Final Fantasy 16 is, besides the name Final Fantasy 16 and some of the fanfare that was in the game, it made me not think of Final Fantasy as a game, right? Because when I think of Final Fantasy, I think of, it's an RPG in the sense of of course they moved off from turn-based, sure, but you get a party, you change out accessories and things on your characters, new weapons and various things like that. And you get new party members, and maybe there's hidden party members, and you level them up separately, and they all have different abilities and various things like that. The problem with Final Fantasy 16 is that, you play as Clive for most of it, right? For 99% of it. And you do have people with you, but they're just kind of like standing bodies, right? Only Clive levels up. Only can you give Clive new weapons or new accessories and various things like that. I thought the story in Final Fantasy 16 was great. That's probably one of the best parts of it, is the story, but the action combat was really repetitive. Just the normal combat, the primal combat was also one of the great things about the game. That part of the game was awesome. The primal combat and the story were great. But the regular combat, which is what you do most of the time, was really repetitive and boring. And didn't really offer, I don't think, enough variety. Even though you could use the different spells of the primals, it still didn't offer enough variety. I think having additional characters that you can play off of, yes, they did cast spells and things like that, but that maybe you could control, or having it more of a turn-based thing where you do control each party member, Like, I wish Final Fantasy would go back to more of a turn-based traditional, and I think that's what a lot of people, uh, especially the fan base, right? Because the thing about Final Fantasy, the way I look at Final Fantasy specifically, is Final Fantasy is really there are a lot of people that play it, but I don't think your casual player is going to go out and buy a Final Fantasy game, right? Your Call of Duty guy, or someone that plays Madden or something, isn't going to go, oh, the next Final Fantasy, I can't wait, right? I just don't see them doing that, right? It's the people that know what those games are and love them that are going to go out, and there's a lot of them, right? There's a big group of them, but those are the people that are dedicated and going to go out and buy that. But the more you change it to make it more mainstream, and I feel like changing it, the combat and stuff, and the kind of scope and focus of Final Fantasy, is they're trying to make it more mainstream. And I just don't think that game is going to I just don't think it's going to grab a mainstream audience. I think it's going to still just get those people that, like myself, that are big Final Fantasy fans. And that's pretty much the group you're going to snag, right? You might snag a few casuals here and there, but you're not really going to get that big group of people, I don't think. I think Square Enix has just been making a lot of mistakes in trying to shy away from what made them great. And I understand games evolve and things like that, but they've distanced themselves so far away from what made Square a company that when they brought a new game out, you were just super excited for, right? I mean, we've had some older releases, Forspoken, even though we liked Forspoken, it didn't do well, right? The Dio Chronicles, we thought that game was good, but again, it didn't do very well. I'm not sure how Octopath Traveler did for them. But a lot of these games just, I don't know, Square Enix needs to do something. They're just not hitting on any cylinders, it seems like. The only thing that really hit big for them was Final Fantasy VII Remake, which of course Rebirth is going to be coming out next year, and that'll probably do pretty well for them as well. But again, one thing about Rebirth, besides the fact that it is action combat instead of the turn-based that the original Final Fantasy VII was, it's still it kind of plays on nostalgia of the people that played it before. And then I don't know, there was you have your party members and stuff, so it's still kind of somewhat turn-based, somewhat action in that game, I guess. You're mainly controlling Cloud, but you can switch characters, right? You can control Barrett, you can control Tifa and stuff like that. Whereas in 16, you couldn't control the other characters, right? You're just Clive, right? So I don't know. They just Square Enix needs to do something, or they're going to continue to, I think, lose their player base, right? They're going to have the fans, but the casuals that may have came in, I feel like, are going to slowly just start to wander off, right? Because they're not making anything that's really attracting them, the larger majority of the gamer base, and they're really just keeping that small pool of people that love their games. But they're going to start losing them if they can't focus on, hey, maybe we just need to focus on those individuals, right? Maybe we won't make the billions of trillions of dollars every year, but we'll make a steady stream of cash instead of just losing money left and right, because we're not really pissing people off, but we're not grabbing the fans or the the casual player base. I don't know. So what do you think about all this, Pat?
Yeah, I don't. I mean, it sucks to hear that they're losing money. They lost that much, It's a hard thing to hear because, while I don't think Final Fantasy 16 was a bad game by any means, it wasn't the best in the series or up there. In my opinion, the best part of it was the primal battles. I loved that part of it. That was the best part of it. There's nothing like rollers running around like Godzilla on roller skates, as Ifrit, so that part was fun, I thought. The story for me was interesting and cool, but the thing I missed most, I think, about it is Nick said, like, the companion type stuff. Like in 15, you at least still had companions and it was action based, but in this one, you have a different person running with you here and there. but they're not really like part of your party. You don't build your party and do turn-based combat like you used to, which is what I really liked about Final Fantasy back in the day. But I didn't mind when they swapped over to action-based for the remake, Final Fantasy 7 remake and Final Fantasy 15. I didn't really mind that. Both those games were pretty good in their own way. But this game really, in my opinion, the only thing that their claim to fame is the epic battles between, the avatars. So I really like that part. Other than that, it's just meh to me. It's not good, not bad, but and how I usually gauge that for myself is how much of an effort did I make to beat the game, complete the game, right? Did I brush up against the ending and just lost steam? Or did I get to a point to where something better came out and I just went along to that? And unfortunately, I did not beat Final Fantasy 16. I just played it until I ran out of steam, which I think I was probably around halfway, to be honest with you. I mean, I got to the desert place where you fight the big dude and hit in the stone one. And so, I did all that. But at that point I was just like, okay, it is what it is. But to hear they're losing money and to have lost 30% of their, shares in the company have plummeted 30%, that's a lot to hear, because the game's not that bad. I think, and this is just my personal opinion, the thing that hurts them the most is exclusivity. I mean, I think it hurts most games. I honestly think it hurts most games. I think Final Fantasy 16 would be in a better place if it wasn't only on PlayStation. Because I don't think it's a console mover by any means. It's a good game, but it's not a console mover. Microsoft and Sony need to basically just sit down at the dinner table, sign a gentleman's agreement to stop making exclusive games and just put games out for everything. Because the only person who gets hurt in the end is the studios they own. Because the studios or the third party studios in this case, because Square-Enix is third party, who are hurt. Like, I would like to know the undisclosed amount of money that Sony gave Square-Enix to keep this game console exclusive. Because, Final Fantasy 15 came out on the Xbox at the same time it did for the PlayStation. So what's the excuse that this one didn't? And we know it is that Sony offered them a chunk of money. Was it enough that they would have made up on the Xbox? Who knows? I would love to have been a fly on the wall to know that amount. But whatever the amount was, Square Enix obviously thought they couldn't make that much money on Xbox, right? I mean, that's the only thing. Unless during the time they got the cash injection, they were just hurting for cash and needed something to keep them afloat. And that's where Sony came in and be like, waved the wad of cash under their nose and been like, do you want to be able to publish this game or not? Do you want to be able to push this game out the door? So, I mean, honestly, I am so sick and tired of exclusive titles. Like, just let me play what I want, where I want. And then your distinction is going to be who has the better console along with the better dashboard and interface. Let that be your deciding factor. That will never happen, though. There's too much greed, too much animosity, and too many fanboys, right? I mean, let's just break it down. There's aberrant fans on both sides of the fence to the degree of being extremely obnoxious. What a lot of them are. A lot of people will downplay something they've never got to play because it's on one console or the other, and I'm like, that's just stupid. You're basing the merits of a game on what console that it's available on, not the actual merits of the gameplay. It happens every time a game comes out on PlayStation only. You got Xbox people hating on it and talking about how crappy of a game it is, but they never played it. You got games that come out only on Xbox. You got PlayStation players complaining about how crappy of a game it is, not even to play a single second of the game. We see it all the time, and it's quite annoying. It's just like, just let me play it where I want. Would Square Enix be in this much trouble? I don't know. I do think, and this part of the good news out of the story is that their mobile stuff is failing, which I'm all welcome for. I'm tired of all these game developers focusing on mobile. I'm tired of that. I don't want to hear any of that. It's the most worthless thing to do because most mobile games are cash grab games. not every game that gets put out that way is a cash grab, but most of them are. They're like, how can I get money out of the players on a regular basis? I'm going to create either a game to service game, a game with a lot of microtransactions, or we'll put this out on mobile. So they just got to push one button and spend $2 every week, or $2 every few days, or $10 or $20 a month, something to that effect. So to me, part of it is Square Enix has dug their own hole here. They were enticed by Sony to only put it out on PlayStation. Hopefully when this releases on PC, it gives them another little infusion of cash, and they have a better quarter and overall helps with the better fiscal year. But how much money did they lose by not going out, not releasing for Xbox as well? And will it come out on Xbox for the players who aren't going to buy a PlayStation just for this game? That's the question. So to me, it's a little bit of self-inflicted. Like some of the stuff that they've been putting out and has been complete garbage. Like they published the Marvel Avengers game, right? They didn't build that one. Crystal Dynamics did that one, right? But did they publish it? I thought Square Enix had published a Marvel game that didn't do so good.
Yeah, they published because they had they own Crystal Dynamics until they sold it off to Embracer. So yeah, they published it and Crystal Dynamics developed.
They've just been making some really bad decisions here lately, I think, and focusing on the wrong things. I mean, it's no different than we heard about all these game developers losing their butts on crypto and NFTs and all this and that. It's just. It's self-inflicted. I think the majority of this is self-inflicted, but I hate to hear about it happening to a beloved studio, like Square Enix, because they make some good games. But stop playing the console. Stop being a third party releasing console exclusive. That to me makes absolutely no sense. Like, I don't know how that can even make sense to anybody. Like, is Sony or Microsoft really willing to pay you more than you think you can make on the other console just to keep it off of that console? That to me seems insane, because that's like the long game, right? If Sony can buy enough third parties, or not buy enough, or buy into enough third parties when they're developing a game to say, hey, we want you to only release this on PlayStation, we're going to give you a fat chunk of cash. How long can they play that long game before it either pays off or it doesn't pay off? And the same thing with Microsoft, if they're doing it too, which I imagine they might be. You can't go in there with a wad of cash saying, I will pay you to only put this out on my console, and be able to outlast the other, because Sony and Microsoft are not tiny companies. They are very large companies, both of them, and they can run the long game. So if you think you're going to go in and buy all these games up exclusive rights from third parties and be able to maintain that and sustain that over the years, I think that's just a dumb strategy. But I don't know any of these large companies. I don't have those deep ass pockets like they do to keep doing that. So, but they should feel ashamed of themselves, right? It's not the right thing to do. It's anti-consumer. It is anti-competition, which all businesses are anti-competition to some extent. But, we as gamers, we don't want there to only be a Sony. We don't, because there goes your innovation out the window right there. If there's only Sony and not Xbox and not Nintendo, because as much as I say this, I don't think Nintendo is in the same realm. I mean, Nintendo is in their own realm, and they make games that are specific to their ecosystem that are great games, but they are not in the same arena. They're not in the same battle arena fighting for the same games as Xbox and PlayStation are. This is not. They have their own titles, their own great games, but then they really don't have competition, really. In their area, they don't have competition. So, that's... I hate to hear about it, but it is what it is, and it's quite a bit self-inflicted at this point.
Yeah, I agree. And I agree with the exclusivity as well, right? I think even if they didn't come out on Xbox, let's say, even if Sony came up to them and said, hey, you need to put it on, here's some wad of cash to exclusively put it on our console. If I were Square Enix, I would say, okay, that's fine, but we have one condition. And that is we get to release it also on the PC, day and date, right? Not later, day and date. So we release it on your PlayStation. You get the console exclusive, but we get it to put it on PC. Because I think even if that were the case, they probably would have better sales numbers. Because one thing I've noticed, especially online, reading online and stuff like that, there seems to be, we had that time where there was a lot of PC players and then it kind of died off. And that seems to be surging back up again. There seems to be a lot more people PC playing than console playing. There's a lot of people console playing, but it seems like the surge of users playing on PC has gone up. And so at least it seems that way. I don't know if it has or not, but it just seems that way from all the talk I hear online. I always, before it was always Xbox, Nintendo, PlayStation. We had that big surge of PC players a long time ago, where everybody was, and then consoles kind of came big again, and now consoles are still big, but PC is starting to gain traction again, and a lot of people are doing that. So I think you would have a big slew of people buying it on PC if it came out on that same day. But I agree, especially for Square Enix, I don't understand them just releasing on PlayStation. To think that they were going to make, because they would make more money if they would have released especially a game I understand if they want to release, sometimes Square Enix will release small titles like Romancing Saga or something like that, right? Which a lot of people aren't going to play. The fans of those games, like myself, I'm going to pick it up and play it, but a lot of other people will not. And so they only release it on Nintendo Switch and PlayStation. That's the only thing it comes out on, right? And it's mainly there. I think the reason they do that is because it's a small title. They have I think they're going to get more sales in Japan, and there's a bigger install base for those systems in Japan than there is for Microsoft's, right? And they're going to get a smaller install base in the US for those types of games. So yeah, as much as I would like for them to release those games, and Romancing Saga is a bad one because I think they did release some of those on Xbox, but they have other ones that they've only released on PlayStation. So it makes sense if they wanted to do that. But something as big as Final Fantasy, with this big name recognition as Final Fantasy has, put it out on everything, right? They can't for the Switch because it just graphically wouldn't be able to handle it, but put it out on the Xbox, put it out on the PC, put it out on the PlayStation, day and date, and don't allow for exclusivity deals on those particular games, those big games, right? Those big titles, because you're gonna lose out, right? There's a bigger install base for PlayStation, for the PlayStation console, but there's still a significant install base for PC as well as Xbox that, if they don't own a PlayStation 5, they basically are SOL. And so are you, Square Enix. You're SOL too, right? Because, just because you're releasing on PlayStation, that doesn't mean that's where all the Final Fantasy people are. A lot of them are probably on PC right now because Final Fantasy 14, right? Playing that. And Final Fantasy 7 Remake is on PC as well. So, that came out later on PC, but still it's on PC. So those people are probably, a lot of those people right now are probably over there. That would definitely pick it up. So, I agree. They kind of did it to themselves, but they need to think, I don't know. Microsoft came out on stage with them during that Final Fantasy 14 and finally coming to Xbox. Maybe that means that more, not just Final Fantasy games, but more Square Enix games will start to release out on Xbox. I know it's not as big in Japan, but I think there's a big enough install base of Xboxes in the US that, those, because one thing I read online and see a lot in the comments too is a lot of people that would love to play these games. They just don't own a PC or a PlayStation, right? They only own an Xbox, and that's fine. You own what you want. But they see games coming out on PC or PlayStation from Square Enix that they would love to play, but they don't own those consoles, right? And they don't have the money to go out and buy those consoles, so they're kind of just stuck not playing them. But if they came out to Xbox, they would purchase them and play them, right? But yeah, hopefully they can turn things around. They should really get out. I think personally, they should really get out of their exclusivity deal with Final Fantasy Remake, the 7 remake, and bring it out on Xbox and PC, right? They're probably stuck for all three titles. They probably made that deal with them, and it probably cost them more to get out of the deal. But if they could, they should get out of it and just bring it out on all three platforms, excluding the Switch, because again, the Switch wouldn't be able to handle it graphically. But if it could, if they had the Switch 2, right? We talked about that before. If that could handle it, then put it out on that too, right? The more platforms you put it out on, the bigger install base you're going to have, the more purchases you're going to make. It might cost you more to ship them out to these consoles, but I think you'll make more on the back end with sales.
Yeah, because I mean, you have to think of it. I always there's a statistician or whatever put out statuses and stats from a couple years ago. Basically, you have almost twice as many PC gamers as you do console gamers combined. So the article states that there was over a billion, like 1.1, almost 1.2 billion PC gamers out there in the market, and only 611 million combined console players.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
the PC market is huge. Like,
yeah, and they've always
have that dip. I mean, it did have that dip for.
I think it was
like crypto. Years ago. Like years ago. I'm talking.
I think it mostly is the cryptocurrency screwed up the VGA market. The video card market. So that's really kind of fixed itself. That's self-righted itself with China and the other people going, well, we're gonna make this illegal now, and the giant crypto mining company closing doors and things like that. So cards are back on the market at a more reasonable rate and even below MSRP again, finally. But yeah, I mean, it's the number one. I think I read an article the other day that it is now the number one entertainment media in the world. What video gaming is, it has now passed up music and movies. So, it is here to stay. But if you're a developer, you are going to hurt yourself by becoming a one console developer. Now, this is coming from a place of ignorance as well, whereas I don't have any experience on what it's like to develop on a multi-ecosystem. So I don't know what it looks like to build a game that works for PlayStation and also at the same time simultaneously building it to play on Xbox. I don't know how that looks. Could be really freaking difficult for all I know. And you have a relationship with Sony or you have a relationship with Microsoft and that's why you're doing it. But to never want to dump any funds into the other one is, to me, just seems really, really bad for business. But that's just me.
Yeah, I would think you would want to get, I mean, again, just like you said, we don't have any experience in this stuff. So we're just kind of, talking off the cuff here as far as what we would think. Right. And I would think you would want to get your game out to the most installed base out there. Right. And I know it does take development costs to make a game on several platforms compared to one. Right. There are additional costs for that, but I guess you would have to outweigh the cost of doing that with projected sales numbers for putting it out on other things, right? But like I said, and like you said about the PC market, if they would have, if Sony came to them and said, hey, I would have said sure, but we get to release it on PC at the same time, right? We'll put it on for consoles, we'll put it on PlayStation only, but we're also putting it on PC, because I think they would have got a lot more sales off of the game than just having.
I don't think Sony would agree to that though, right? Because then at the end, it still helps Microsoft's bottom dollar.
Right. Yeah. But Square-Enix needs to think about Square-Enix, right? And if Sony's not going to play ball, then they say, "Oh, sorry, adios, amigo." It must have been a good, Sony was just hurt for cash at that time. It's like, payday wasn't there yet. Sony's like, hey man, I'll tell you what, I'll sell you these exclusive, right? And I'll give you cash today. And he was like, okay, I'll take it. Then later on, he gets paid and he has to pay Sony back. And he's like, damn, that was a horrible deal.
Sony screwed us. We could have made twice as much money if we released it on everything.
Yeah, we've all been there. Those
bad decisions, money decisions in a quick flick of the wrist is not the right decision, right? You need to mull that crap over. But they're like, $1 million now, $5 million 2 years from now. Give me the. Do I get 1 million now or 2 million in a couple of years. Which one do I want? All right.
Give me a hamburger today and I'll pay you tomorrow. It's like those things at the cash register, you know, the all the crap that's sitting at the cash register. What do they call it? I can't remember what they call that stuff. There's a name for it, like the
they're just there to grab your attention,
entice you to buy like, you know, that crap that's sitting up there, and you get home, you're like, why did I buy this? Because it was sitting at the checkout. You're like, oh, that's cool. I'll just throw that on there. But anyway, you got anything else you want to say about this? All right. Well, let us know down in the comments below. What did you think of Final Fantasy 16 if you played it? And what do you think of Square Enix? You know, what do you think they should do? Right. What do you think their faults are? You know, what they're failing at, and what they should do going forward. You know, should they drop the console exclusivity stuff? I think that would probably be best, and release it on as many platforms as they can, especially big titles, right? Smaller titles I can understand, but big titles, big well-known titles should be coming out on everything, right? I think Square Enix will just make a lot more money doing something like that. A lot more money back, or I should say, in sales doing something like that than just being exclusive to one thing, right? Because then you're sizing your player base down to just whoever has that particular box, right? So let us know down in the comments below. But other than that, thanks for watching, everybody. Make sure to like the video. Make sure to subscribe if you're not already. Do us a favor, help us out. Hit that subscribe button. Also, make sure to hit the bell notifications to stay up to date with new videos that we do all the time. And we'll see you next time.